The average black woman in diaspora encounters racism at least 5 times a day. Hello and welcome to my video. You'd probably say that's impossible, that's not true. Indeed, I have encountered black women who say they have never encountered racism. And some would think back to maybe 1 or 2 incidences. But the problem you see is that racism is in camouflage. We very often don't even recognize that we are being encountered by racism. So let's go through the day of an average black woman's life in diaspora and see how likely it is to encounter racism. It starts in the morning while dressing up your kids. The average black woman like me would shower her kid. I would rub a lot of oil, pay particular attention that the skin is properly oiled, the hair is oiled and combed. All because back there in my mind, I'm worried about the impression my child will make in school. How would my child look amidst all the other children? Will my child look good enough? Will maybe the other children look down on my child or the teacher? So already you see, this is the first encounter with racism. Psychologically, you're under stress. Because remember, racism is all about being told you are inferior. And see, already early this morning, you're psychologically early in the morning under stress to try to make your child not to appear inferior in school. So that's where it starts. Now, probably you would pass through the bakery and everybody else entering into the bakery shop would be greeted with name. Hello, Frau Stoll. Hello, Frau Klaus. And you've come in there and you get maybe a good morning or a hello. Because over the last 10 years you've been going to this bakery, nobody there ever bothered to know your name. You see, that's another encounter with racism. You are inferior, you are not important. Even though you are bringing the same money like other customers, you are not important, you are inferior. That's the second encounter. Then your child, you go with your child into the kindergarten. There's hardly any small talk with the Etzia there, unlike the other mothers who often make some small talk. Even if there's small talk, the language is very unfamiliar. That's another encounter with racism. Now, while your child is in kindergarten and your child comes out, your child will probably tell you an incident of how the child was ignored or discouraged or probably told it couldn't do something. That's racism. When the child said, Mama, I wanted to do this, but the teacher said I can't do it. Probably if it were another white child, the Etzia would have brought out that toy and taken the pains to play that game with the child. But when it's the black child, oh, just put it back, you can't play it. Just put it back, you can't play it. Or you are picking a child to do something with just 2-3 children. The black child is not picked. Those are all encounters with racism. Because fact is that the Etzia, the kindergarten teacher, will tend to pick that child that looks more like her and who she feels deserves that treatment. Those are all encounters with racism. Now, at the end of school, you probably go to kindergarten to pick your child. And let's say you come a bit early. What happens? You stand outside and maybe one white parent comes and sees you there. Because you're the only parent there, she starts talking to you. laughing. As soon as another white parent comes, she starts looking a little bit embarrassed. Starts talking to the other white parent, still manages to make one or two sentences to you, and then she diverts totally to the other white parent. And before you know it, another white parent has come, and then another, and they're in their group, and you're totally cut out. That's racism. Yet people are saying you don't integrate. But here again, you were cut out because you were inferior. So you see, racism, it occurs so often, and we don't even recognize it. All this, your hair is curly, can I touch your hair? Why is your... Those are more like racial teasing. That's just a tiny aspect of racism. Those things we get so annoyed about. Oh, the woman called me a nigger. She touched my hair. Those are just smaller aspects of racism, racial teasing. The more dangerous aspects of racism are, for instance, like what it does with your head, how you are constantly under emotional, psychological stress, trying to meet up, make your child look good enough, trying to fit in so hard. You try so hard that you actually begin to believe that maybe something is wrong with you or your child. But you don't understand that you have been labeled as inferior. That's racism. Do you notice how many of us sometimes we go to a kindergarten parent-teachers meeting, Elton Abn, and people are just talking about some topics, and you feel like everybody is in the know, and that maybe you are just dumb or you don't understand the language. That's why you don't understand what is going on. No. The fact is that very often these topics have been discussed when these white parents meet with the teacher in casual conversations, when they are picking up their child or dropping. They are being given vital information about the kindergarten that you don't get, and then you sit in that meeting and everything seems like Latin to you, or you don't really understand. That's racism. That's racism. So really, really, we have to be aware of racism and how we encounter it. Because if we don't identify the enemy, there's really nothing we can do about it. Then we go through life with a rosa rote brille, as they say in German, naively, you stroll to life and say you have never had an encounter with racism. And often I say to people when they tell me they've never had an encounter with racism, I tell them, you can't even know if you have had an encounter with racism because it's subjective. It's also the person carrying out this action that really knows for sure why he or her carried out that action. Is she frowning at you because she doesn't like you or because she has some racial prejudice? Only the person frowning knows what is in them. So please, my black brothers and sisters, the whole point of this message is to get one thing across. No black should ever open their mouth anywhere to say or to write, I have never encountered racism. Please, because studies have shown you encounter racism at least 5 times a day. That's if you're even living a kind of secluded life. for teenagers, adolescents, young men and women in working places. They encounter it a lot more. Thank you for listening to this video. I hope you could pick something useful out of it. And if you like the video, please do share and subscribe to my channel. Thank you.